Good evening, MM Porto. I am Joshua Radje, and now let's move on to the next topic, which is the types of quality control. So first, I will share a brief explanation on what is my understanding about quality control. So quality control creates a safe measures that can be implemented to make sure the deficient or the damaged products do not end up with the customers. So for instance, quality control seeks to ensure that the product quality is maintained or improved. Throughout this lesson, we will learn about the different types of quality control and why they are useful to the company. You may be wondering how quality control works or how quality control works well. Each of them has a unique characteristics. In this section, we will break each of them down so that we can understand how they might use. These are the types of quality control. Number 1 is the checklist. Number 2 is the fishbone diagram. Number 3 is the control chart. Number 4 is the stratification. Number 5 is the Pareto chart. Number 6 is the histogram. The number 1 is the checklist. So importers often want to know what is the best way to clarify their product requirements, both to their supplier and any inspection staff that might check an order before shipping. An effective quality control checklist most often serves this purpose. A quality control checklist is basically a written guide for your products, contents, packaging, color, barcodes, appearance, possible defects, function, and special requirements. It's also sometimes called an inspection criteria sheet, that is a checklist. Again, it is also sometimes called inspection criteria sheet or the inspection checklist. So the question is, why do importers need an effective quality control checklist? Okay, so importers know that they need to provide a clear product requirements to their supplier, or else they risk receiving a shipment that doesn't meet their expectation or those of their customer. So that is one why quality control checklist is important. So next, we have the fishbone diagram. Fishbone diagram can help in brainstorming to identify the possible causes of a problem and in sorting ideas into useful categories. A fishbone diagram is a visual way to look at costs and at cause and effects. So it is useful in a product development and troubleshooting processes, typically used to focus a conversation around a problem. After the group has brainstormed all the possible causes of a problem, so the facilitator helps the group to rate the potential causes according to their level of importance and the diagram hierarchy. The name comes from the diagram's design, which looks much like a skeleton of a fish. So a fishbone diagrams are typically work right to left, with each large bone of the fish branching out to include the smaller bones and each containing more details. And next we have the control chart. The control chart is a graph used to study how a process changes over time. A control chart always has a central line for the average, an upper line for the upper control limit, and a lower line for the lower control limit. These lines are determined from historical data. So the question is when to use a control chart. Number 1 is when controlling ongoing processes by finding and correcting problems as they occur. Number 2, when predicting the expected range of outcomes from a process. Number 3, when determining whether a process is stable, that is in a statistical control. Number 4 is when analyzing patterns of process variation from special causes or the non-routine events or common causes built into process. And number 5, when determining whether your quality improvement project should aim to prevent specific problems or to make fundamental changes to the process. These are the basic procedure. Number 1 is to choose the appropriate control chart for your data. Number 2, determine the appropriate time of period for collecting data and plotting data. Number 3 is collect data, construct your chart, and analyze the data. And lastly, number 4, we have look for out of control signals on the control chart. When one is identified, mark it on the chart and investigate the cause. Document how you investigate what you learned, the cause, and how it was corrected. And next we have the stratification. So stratification is defined as the act of sorting data, people, and objects into distinct group of layers or layers. It is a technique used in combination with other data analysis tools. When data from a variety of resources or categories have been lumped together, the meaning of the data can be difficult to see. This data collection and analysis, or the analysis technique, separates the data so that the patterns can be seen and is considered one of the 7 basic quality tools. And when to use stratification. Number 1, we have when to use stratification: before collecting data, when data come from several sources or conditions such as shifts, days of the week, suppliers, or the population groups. And lastly, when data analysis may require separating different sources or conditions. Here are the examples of different sources that might require data to be stratified. We have the equipment, ships, departments, materials, suppliers, day of the week, time of the day, and lastly, products. And also we have the Pareto chart.